My wife secretly embezzled $250, $0 from our joint account, then convinced her brother to forge documents to claim our family home, and now we're embroiled in a bitter legal battle over everything she stole and destroyed. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of everything that's happened. It all started with a gut feeling, really. You know that uneasy sensation in your stomach when something's just not right. That's how I felt for months, but I kept brushing it off, telling myself I was overthinking. Turns out I was right all along, and what I uncovered was far worse than I could have imagined. My wife, Jessica, and I had been married for about 8 years. We met in college, fell hard, and somehow built a life together that seemed solid, at least on the surface. She was the kind of woman who could turn on the charm and make everyone believe she was perfect. She's beautiful, confident, and always knew how to make herself the center of attention at every party. But behind closed doors, things weren't so perfect. I started noticing little things, missing money from our joint account, strange phone calls she'd hide from me, and a sudden change in her attitude toward intimacy. She'd be bitchy and dismissive one day, then overly affectionate the next. It was like she was keeping secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being played. The first real sign was when I checked our bank account one evening. I'd always been responsible with our finances, and I liked to keep track of every penny, especially because we'd been saving for a house. But I noticed a withdrawal of $10, $0 that I didn't recognize. I asked Jessica about it and she brushed it off, saying it was a mistake or a transfer she made for some emergency. I thought maybe she was just being careless, but I didn't press her too hard. Still, that amount seemed way too big for an emergency, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. A few weeks later, I caught her in a lie about where she was going. She said she was meeting her sister for lunch, but her phone GPS showed she was somewhere else entirely, at a hotel downtown. When I asked her about it, she got defensive, told me I was paranoid, and accused me of not trusting her. That hurt more than I expected. I'd always believed we had honesty between us, but now I was starting to see cracks. She'd lie about small things, then get angry when I questioned her. Then came the night I found her texting someone named Chris. It was obvious they had some kind of affair. The texts weren't just friendly, they were full of flirtation, promises to meet up, and explicit talk about sex. I saw pictures of her in bed with him, her legs spread, her face flushed with excitement. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. My wife Jessica cheating on me, doing things I never imagined she'd do. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut and my world started to crumble. I was furious, devastated, and confused all at once. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I sat in silence, trying to process everything, trying to decide what to do. The next day, I knew I had to face her. I waited until she came home from work, and I laid everything out. Her secret affair, the money she'd stolen, the lies, the betrayal. Her reaction was cold and dismissive. She called me paranoid, accused me of invading her privacy, and then, get this, she said I was overreacting because I didn't understand her needs. She told me I was controlling, jealous, and that she deserved happiness too. That was the moment I realized I was dealing with someone who was more than just unfaithful. She was manipulative and willing to lie her way out of anything. That confrontation was a turning point. I felt crushed, betrayed, but also angry. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long, trusting someone who was clearly capable of everything I just uncovered. It was like waking up from a nightmare, only to find out the nightmare was real, and it was worse than I could have ever imagined. I knew I had to decide what to do next, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. I needed time to think, to figure out how I was going to handle this mess she'd created. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and my mind kept circling around the same thoughts. How could she do this? How long had she been cheating on me, and most of all, how much had she stolen? I knew her too well. Jessica was a master at hiding her tracks, but I was determined to find out the truth. I started digging into our joint accounts more thoroughly. I had access to everything, but I'd never really paid close attention before. Now I was looking at every transaction, every transfer, every withdrawal. That's when I noticed the biggest shock. Over the past year, she'd embezzled around $250, $0. It wasn't just a mistake or a one-time thing. It was calculated, planned. She'd hidden it in multiple accounts, siphoning off money bit by bit, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. The more I looked, the more I uncovered. She convinced her brother, Mark, to forge documents claiming our family home was hers, something she'd been working on for months. She'd even gone as far as to set up fake signatures, fake IDs, and falsified legal papers. I found emails and texts where she explained her plan, saying she wanted to start over and be free from the burden of this house. It was pure manipulation, and I was furious. She lied to everyone, including her own family, just to cover her tracks. I felt a surge of anger that I'd never experienced before. I'd always been a calm, rational guy, but this was different. I was drowning in betrayal. I couldn't believe she'd gone this far, stealing from us, lying, cheating, and even involving her brother in her scheme. I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not only because she'd stolen our money, but because she'd destroyed the trust we had. How could I come back from this? How could I ever look at her the same way again? I decided I needed a plan, something precise, something that would expose her fully. I started recording everything I found, backing up emails, saving bank statements, and taking screenshots of her messages. I wanted to have concrete proof before confronting her again. I also contacted a lawyer secretly. I knew I had to prepare for the legal battle that was coming, especially since she was trying to claim our house through forged documents. I'd never been involved in anything like this before, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. Meanwhile, Jessica kept acting like nothing was wrong. She'd go out with her friends, flirt with other guys, and make excuses when I asked about her late nights. She'd tell me I was paranoid, insecure, and that I was ruining what we had. But I knew the truth. I saw her phone, her emails, her secret bank accounts. Every day I felt more betrayed, more hurt, and more determined to fight back. I couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built. I wasn't going to let her walk away with our home, our savings, and our dignity. One night I followed her to a hotel downtown. I saw her go in with Chris again, those same flirtatious messages, that same look in her eyes. It confirmed everything I'd already suspected. She was cheating on me with him, probably for months. I felt like my world was collapsing. How could she do this? How could she lie and steal and manipulate her own family? I was on the verge of losing my mind. I knew I had to do something more than just be hurt. I had to fight back for myself and for what was left of our life together. That's when I made the decision. I was done waiting. I was going to expose her, take her to court, and fight for everything she'd stolen. But I also knew I had to be smart. I needed to gather more evidence, talk to professionals, and figure out how to undo the damage she'd caused. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about betrayal on every level. And I was determined not to let her win, not without a fight. After I decided to take action, everything moved so fast I could barely keep up. I spent days gathering every shred of evidence I could find: bank statements, emails, text messages, even copies of forged documents she had her brother Mark create. I needed irrefutable proof to show the lawyer and eventually the courts. The more I dug, the more I realized just how deep her lies went. She'd been planning this for a long time, and I was naively blind to it all. I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in family law and financial crimes. Explaining everything, the embezzlement, the forged documents, the affair, was like vomiting all my pain into words. The lawyer listened carefully, asked detailed questions, and then explained my options. She told me I had a strong case to reclaim the money, challenge her claim to the house, and possibly press charges for the embezzlement and forgery. That was a huge shock, but honestly, I wasn't surprised anymore. I just wanted justice. In the meantime, Jessica kept up her act. She'd come home late, smell like perfume, and brush off my questions with a slick smile. She'd say I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her, that I was just insecure and jealous. But I'd seen her texts with Chris, I'd seen the bank transfers, and I knew she was lying. It was like living with a stranger, someone I didn't recognize anymore. The betrayal cut so deep I sometimes wondered how I'd ever trust her again. How could she do this to me, to us? One particularly bad night, I decided to confront her again. I told her I knew everything: the affair, the money, the forged documents. Her reaction was classic Jessica. She started crying, calling me a controlling, jealous husband who didn't understand her needs. She said she was just trying to find herself, that she was unhappy, and that I was the reason she was seeking comfort. Elsewhere, she even had the nerve to tell me I was the one to blame because I never paid enough attention to her. That was the moment I realized how deep her lies went. She was a master manipulator, turning everything around so she looked like the victim. I felt a strange mix of rage and sadness. Rage that she could do this, and sadness because I still loved her. At least I thought I did. But that love was fading fast. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when I knew the truth. I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or to cut my losses. Every part of me wanted justice, but part of me just wanted out of this nightmare. The next step was to confront her with the evidence I'd collected. I told her I was going to take her to court, that I was going to get back every dollar she stole and challenge her claim to the house. Her face twisted into a mix of anger and panic. She begged, said I was ruining everything, that she loved me and didn't want to lose us. But I saw through her tears. I knew. She was just trying to manipulate me again. I wasn't falling for it. I was done being played. But I also knew this wasn't just about money or the house. It was about trust, betrayal, and the fact that I'd been completely blindsided. I'd thought we had a partnership, a marriage built on honesty, but I was wrong. Jessica's version of love had been a lie from the start. The more I learned, the more I realized I had to protect myself, not just financially, but emotionally. I couldn't keep living in a world where my wife lied to my face, cheated behind my back, and stole from everything we'd worked for. So I made a decision. I would fight this legally, expose her for what she really was, and rebuild my life from the wreckage. It's not easy, and honestly, I still feel the sting every day. But I know I can't let her get away with it. Not anymore. I have to be strong for myself, for what's left of our marriage, and for my own sanity. That's where I'm at right now, standing at the crossroads trying to figure out what comes next. The legal process kicked off faster than I expected. I met with my lawyer multiple times, going over every piece of evidence I had collected. We drafted a detailed complaint to challenge her claim to the house and demand the return of the stolen money. The fact that she'd forged documents and involved her brother in her scheme made her vulnerable legally, and I was determined to hold her accountable. Jessica, of course, didn't take it lying down. She started playing the victim, claiming I was harassing her, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She spread rumors to her friends and family that I was controlling and paranoid, even accusing me of being abusive, things I knew weren't true. It was classic Jessica, twisting everything around to make herself look innocent. But I had the proof: screenshots, bank records, forged documents, and I wasn't about to back down. One of the most startling moments came when I discovered she'd been secretly working with her brother to transfer money into fake accounts. They'd set up shell companies, fake IDs, and forged signatures to make it all look legitimate. I found emails where Jessica explained her plans in detail, saying she wanted to start fresh somewhere far away, and that she was done with the marriage. That hit me hard. She'd been planning her escape for months, all while pretending everything was fine. The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. Every night I'd lie awake replaying everything I'd uncovered, questioning how I could have missed the signs. I'd trusted her with my life, my future, and now I was left with a mountain of lies and stolen money. But amid all that pain, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to fight for what's right, for what's left of our life together. I couldn't just walk away without trying to hold her accountable. The court hearings were intense. Jessica showed up, acting all innocent and tearful, claiming she was the real victim here, that I was just trying to control her and ruin her life. She threw around accusations about me being jealous and insecure, but I had everything documented. I presented my evidence: bank statements, forged documents, her own emails, and watched as the judge listened carefully. It was clear she was trying to manipulate the situation, but the truth was on my side. In one hearing, I had to sit across from her and describe everything she'd done. I could see her eyes flicker with guilt, but she kept up her act, pretending to be the wronged wife. I felt a strange mix of anger and pity. I realized she'd become a master at lying, at covering her tracks, and at twisting reality. I kept thinking about how much I'd loved her, how I'd trusted her, and how she'd betrayed me in the worst ways possible. Meanwhile, the legal battle was affecting every part of my life. I lost sleep, my work suffered, and I felt like I was living in a constant state of stress. But I knew I had to keep fighting. If I didn't, she'd get away with everything: our money, our house, maybe even more. I couldn't let her do that. I had to stand my ground, no matter how painful it was. One thing I did realize through all this chaos is that I'd been a fool for trusting her so blindly. Jessica was good at hiding her true self, but now I saw her for what she really was: a liar, a manipulator, someone willing to destroy everything for her own benefit. It's a hard lesson, but I'm learning to accept that some people are just like that. You can't change them, you can only protect yourself. So here I am, still in the thick of it. The court date is coming up and I'm preparing myself for whatever comes next. I know this isn't over yet, but I also know I won't stop fighting until I get justice. I want to rebuild my life, free from her lies, and I want to make sure she can't do this to anyone else. It's a long road ahead, but I'm determined to see it through. The court date finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. I had spent weeks preparing every piece of evidence, every email, every bank transfer, every forged document. I knew Jessica would come prepared with her own lies, her own version of events, but I was ready. I sat in that courtroom, heart pounding, feeling like I was about to face the biggest battle of my life. Jessica looked composed, almost too calm. She tried to act like the innocent wife betrayed by her own husband, tears welling in her eyes, voice trembling when she spoke. She spun a story about how I was controlling, jealous, and paranoid, how I'd been emotionally abusive, and how she just wanted to be free from a marriage that was suffocating her. It was rehearsed, I could tell. Her tears felt fake and her words were carefully chosen to sway the judge. But I had the evidence and I knew I'd win this fight. When it was my turn, I laid out everything. I showed the court the bank statements revealing the embezzlement, the forged documents that tried to claim our house, and the countless emails where Jessica discussed her plans to run away and start a new life. I explained how her brother Mark had helped forge signatures and set up fake companies to siphon off the money. I told the judge about her affair with Chris and how she'd been lying to everyone, including me, for months. My voice cracked at times, but I kept going. I had nothing to hide. Seeing her squirm under the weight of the evidence was a small comfort. The judge listened carefully, asking questions about the forgery and the embezzlement. It was clear that Jessica's lies were unraveling fast. I could see it in her eyes. She knew she was losing control. I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. After all the pain she caused me, I wanted her to pay for every lie, every stolen dollar, and every betrayal. The judge ultimately ruled in my favor for the money and declared that the forged documents were invalid. She ordered Jessica to return the stolen funds, and the court also froze her accounts to prevent her from disappearing with any more money. The house, our family home, was also part of the legal dispute. The court ruled that the forged documents were void and I was awarded full ownership. Jessica's face twisted in anger and frustration. She tried to argue, to manipulate, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I felt exhausted, emotionally drained, but also oddly relieved. I had fought for what was right and I had won. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of loss, loss of trust, of innocence, of the marriage I once believed in. Jessica left the courtroom in tears, shouting that I was ruining her life, but I knew I had done what I needed to do. Justice had been served, at least in the eyes of the law. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces. I've started the process of rebuilding my life from scratch. I've cut ties with Jessica completely, and I'm working to heal from the emotional scars. The money she stole is being recovered, but the damage to my heart and trust runs deeper. I've learned that betrayal can come from the people you least expect, and that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail just to get back what's yours. Looking back, I can see how naive I was. I thought I knew my wife, thought we had a solid partnership. But I was blind to her true nature. I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also realized that some people are just good at hiding who they really are. I want to tell anyone going through something similar: trust your instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for yourself. Your peace of mind and your future depend on it. I'm still healing, but I know I'm stronger than I was before. And for the first time in a long while, I feel like I'm finally taking control of my life again. Now that everything is settled legally, I've been trying to piece my life back together. It's not easy. The emotional scars are deep and trust doesn't come back overnight. But I've learned a lot through all this mess. One thing I've realized is how important it is to pay attention to the small signs, things you might dismiss or overlook when everything seems fine. Because when someone is hiding something big, it usually starts with subtle hints. I've also come to see how destructive betrayal can be, not just for the betrayed, but for everyone involved. Jessica's actions didn't just ruin our marriage. They hurt her family, her brother, and even her own reputation. It's a harsh lesson about the dangers of greed, manipulation, and dishonesty. I used to believe in honesty and loyalty as the foundations of a marriage, but now I know that some people are willing to destroy everything for their own gain. This experience has changed me. I'm more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of my worth. I've started going to therapy to work through the anger and heartbreak, and I'm slowly rebuilding my confidence. I don't see myself as a victim anymore. I see myself as someone who fought back and refused to let her destroy me. That realization has given me a new sense of strength. As for Jessica, I don't harbor hatred. Honestly, I feel a mix of pity and relief. Pity because she's clearly lost in her own lies and greed, and relief because I no longer have to live with the constant stress of her deception. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, although I doubt it'll be happiness or peace. I've learned that sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself from someone else's chaos. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I want to say, trust your instincts, document everything, and never underestimate your own strength. It's okay to be angry, to feel betrayed, and to take the time you need to heal. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself or convince you that you're overreacting. Your feelings are valid, and your peace of mind is worth fighting for. In the end, I'm grateful I found the courage to stand up for myself. I may have lost a lot, but I've gained clarity and resilience. I now know what I want: honesty, loyalty, and a future built on trust, and I refuse to settle for anything less. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes it throws you into storms you never saw coming. But I've learned that even in the darkest times, there's a way to find the light again. You just have to be willing to fight for it.